So any of my properties that I bought or invested in with my EQRP will not be affected by the new tax law. And from what I just gathered, that is correct. You're not going to be affected.
That's correct. Assuming that this passes, we're going to see a lot of layoffs. We're going to see some bankrupted IRA custodians that built their entire business up based on checkbook IRAs. And it's just, it's unfortunate that but this stuff happens, rules change and things shift. So something to consider. EQRPs didn't get attacked, and they're not going to get attacked. They're not going to go after the 401.
Welcome to the Investor Financing Podcast, where we interview real estate investors and lenders so you can learn all the secrets to getting your projects funded and scale your portfolio. And now, your host, Beau Eckstein.
How are you doing, Brother Beau? How are you?
I'm doing well. I love my new home office, and it's good. I got a standing desk, so
I love it. You know, standing desks are the best ones. I know. Maybe I should buy one for this side of my office. I know on the other side I do have one. But let me kind of introduce our good friend Damian. Damian is a best-selling author of a dozen of books, not one or two. On personal finance, investment, and retirement strategies. Damian is on a mission to free 1 million people from financial bondage, the shackles. And he hosts the Financial Underdogs podcast, ripping conventional wisdom apart for truth about money and investing. Not only has he started 50 plus companies. Wow, you definitely want to stick on. This is going to be a great show. 50 plus companies. He even founded his own martial art, Aikido. Damian developed the ultimate investor retirement tool called the EQRP. He's the founder. He's the inventor. He's the, cutting edge, trailblazer right here. His strategies gives individuals total control of their retirement money to invest in real assets like real estate, gold, and crypto. Welcome, Damian. How are you, brother?
Good to see you, Vinney. Good to see you, Beau.
Thank you. We are so privileged to have you. We've been take us through this whole changes that might be happening, going money from the regular people into the Wall Street or something.
Yeah, it's crazy. Many people, you guys probably know Peter Thiel, the co-founder of PayPal with Elon Musk years ago, and he's this big venture capitalist guy. And it turned out, people found out, I don't know if this leaked or whatever, but he has a $5 billion Roth IRA. And all of a sudden, Congress decided to focus on taking the rich people down, and they're going to go after Peter Thiel. And so there's this proposal, which we believe is going to be passed into law through reconciliation with Congress, that will change all the rules for retirement, biggest overhaul in our lifetime. And it basically is a couple of things it's meant to do. One, to restrict how much people have in retirement accounts, so they have no more than $20 million, which it won't work, and I can get into that. But it's also really meant to push the money in IRAs back to Wall Street, because a lot of money was leaking, if you will, from Wall Street's perspective. It was leaking into real estate, and they said, "Wait a second, we don't want the little people to get rich. We want to keep their money in us to get rich." And that's basically what happened. That was the big picture. So they're changing the rules around, so that people are not going to be allowed to use IRA money, any type of IRA, for real estate or single member LLCs, any of that stuff. It's all going to be disqualified and banned, which is a huge problem for people with IRAs that are investing in real estate.
Wow. So what's the magnitude, if we can talk about, right? What kind of numbers are we talking about,
Well, we've got, there's about $10 trillion in IRAs, and we're there's not an exact number on how much of that is in real estate. We know that it's a fairly large number, or Wall Street wouldn't care. If they're looking for that 1%, they want to get their 1%. They want to have that money go back into the stocks and bonds that they get their piece of. So it's at least hundreds of billions. It may be into the multiple trillions. So it's a significant amount of money. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gone after it, because what they do is they're looking for places where they can dip into the honey, and we call it the honey pot. They want to dip into the pool, get the money out of it, create more tax, and then they can go spend it on their programs like the green technologies and different things that they want to spend money on for the Biden administration's proposals. So it's a lot. It's going to impact people that are investing in real estate syndications primarily. That's the biggest target. And so anybody that has an IRA in a real estate deal is being targeted, it's going to blow up their IRA, and it will be banned from even happening going forward after January 1st. But the problem is people that are already invested. And so if you're already invested, you're probably panicking a little bit right now. The good news is we can transfer the assets from those IRAs into an EQRP. If you have an LLC, you can transfer the LLC. So we can fix it, but you're not going to be able to keep your IRAs invested in real estate going forward.
So real estate then, I mean, as I see, REITs are there in the Wall Street, right? Quite a few REITs in different sectors and all. So the IRA retirement monies, which are in Charles Schwab or Vanguards and, you name it, right? All these T. Rowe Price and Fidelity and all of them, that money of the retirement will still stay where it is.
Yeah, nothing's going to change. The rules are basically saying if you're going to invest in any company, it has to be a public company. It can't be a private company, and you cannot invest in anything that requires accreditation or any type of qualification. So the Reg D stuff where people were investing and they had to be accredited or sophisticated investors, those are being banned, literally banned. And if you do it, it doesn't mean you're going to jail. It means they're going to disqualify the entire IRA, taxing you and penalizing you. And so you may as well go to jail because all your money is going to be blown to pieces.
Wow,
that's crazy. What? Okay, can you? I've been trying to grasp this for a little while here. Your vehicle differs how, and can you kind of walk us through how that all looks? Yeah,
so they're specifically targeting IRAs under Section 408, and what they did is they left alone 401ks. They left alone 401s that. So basically they said, okay, if 401ks are going to invest in real estate, that's fine. Why did they do that? And EQRP is a type of 401k, so it's exempt. They're going after IRAs specifically and not 401ks because 401ks and pensions have hundreds of billions of dollars that are invested alongside insurance companies in real estate. If they banned those, it would blow up the real estate industry in America and it would cripple the economy. So sometimes they do something smart. This was smart. If they'd done that, it would have literally melted us down into a recession.
You're listening to the Investor Financing Podcast. We'll be right back after this break.
So for EQRP, what are the qualifications to qualify? You can't be a W-2 employee, or can you? You have a real estate business.
Yep. It really anything under the sun can qualify you. You just have to have some type of business activity. So even if you're not making money, if you have activity. So as Vinney mentioned, I've started more than 50 companies. A number of those, quite a few, have not been profitable. Some of them had no income, but they were all bona fide companies because there's activity. So any individual, whether they have a W-2 or not, or have their own self-employment type of deal, if they have an eBay store, whatever, like they can be hunting deals for flips. It doesn't make any difference. They could be a passive investor and have a digital business, which takes about 15 minutes to set up a business online. So anybody can do it. It's not restricted to only people that are out there with, a shingle in front of their office.
So in other words, we really shouldn't be that worried because we can most likely roll a lot of these vehicles into a 401, into an EQRP or solo.
Yeah, for the most part, you're going to be able to do it. Roth IRAs and inherited IRAs are going to be stuck. So those are the ones that are going to be a problem. But unfortunately, there's still a lot of people that are promoting and bringing IRA money in with this. Like we're basically trying to get the word out as quickly as possible, because when this passes, and we're pretty confident it'll pass, when it happens, we're going to have a huge problem, and people need to stop doing it until they have guidance on what passes, because this is part of it. It's a major reconciliation bill. It's a $3.5 trillion bill that'll get whittled down to maybe $2 trillion. But this is one of the things that we expect to stick. The 401k industry, NAPA, has endorsed this. So I don't expect this to change. I expect this to go through pretty much as is.
Oh, wow. So this is a pretty, one needs to look into all these, right? So, gosh, if somebody invested in a real estate deal, most of our syndication deals, Damian, as you know, they go for 5 to 7 years, right? And if somebody invested the money last year from their Roth IRA or regular IRA, and how can the operators like syndicators like me and others just go fire sale to bring the money into cash position to get it out to the investors, right? They want it back into the Wall Street, you said. So what's the remedy? I mean, are these lawmakers looking at those? So what's going on?
They're not really looking at it because they don't. It's one of 1,000 things that are in this bill. It's a giant bill, so they don't look at the consequences of people getting blown up. I think one of the options for sponsors, for you guys and for other people that are putting deals together, is to let the investors know, hey, this is going to be disqualified before this project closes out. If it's 2, 3, 4 years down the road, there's a 2-year buffer where if you have something pulled out, then you're fine within 2 years. But if it's not going to happen in 2 years, and a lot of things that just happened in 2020 or 21 are probably still going to be live, it may be a good idea to try to find a replacement person. So it wouldn't be the IRA owner, because you can't self-deal, you can't buy your own investment, but somebody else that could take their deal out. Because if that doesn't happen, they're going to be taxed and penalized. And so it's better for them to leave the deal. And so that's the right thing to do, I think, to find somebody that could replace them. Otherwise, it's going to be a big problem. And I mean, we're talking about taxes and penalties that could be 50% of somebody's account.
Oh, wow.
So you there's no way to legally transfer within the deal to a different vehicle like the EQRP?
The Roth IRAs and the inherited IRAs cannot be transferred into anything else. They're the only things that are just stuck. Traditional IRAs can move, and other 401ks can move into an EQRP, but the Roth IRAs and inherited IRAs have a blocker on them that the IRS specifically put in place. And part of that, I think, is that so any IRA really shouldn't be in a syndication deal that's going to exit because of UBID tax. That by itself is a good reason to transfer these into EQRPs. But this makes it even worse. So the UBID tax is 37%. Tax and penalties could be more than 50%. So you start adding this up, you're not going to end up with anything. It's going to all be in the federal government's hands. Sure.
Damian, for the listeners and watchers, if you could explain the UBID tax, and a lot of people don't even, they oversee it, right? Yeah,
the UBID tax is this tax. It's unrelated business income tax. And what it is, it's a tax that gets hit when you have something called UDFI, which is unrelated debt in financed income. Basically what's happening is anytime an IRA invests in a leveraged real estate deal, like an apartment or some type of syndication, when that happens and the project has a net profit over $1,000, like when the project sells, then all this tax gets triggered, and it's a 37% tax on a majority of that income, all the leveraged income. So to give you an example, if somebody invests $100,000 and the project had 70% leverage and they made $100,000, they doubled their money, they would have a tax of somewhere about $20,000 to $25,000 if it was an IRA. Now, if they had invested with an EQRP, it's exempt, so there is no tax. So that's why I say there's no good reason to have an IRA investing in a syndication that's going to exit with a big profit, because you're going to give away 25 to 35% of your profits. It's dumb.
Wow. I know one of our watcher, just mentioned, Indra, thank you so much. This needs to get out ASAP. I just met with an investor group last night. They all are still taking IRA investing, clueless to this, and she's from Ohio, he's from Ohio. Thank you. No, so true. This is something going to change the way people have been saving money. Of course, there are restrictions, how much you can save, but then just to defer not paying taxes, the Roth was the biggest vehicle, actually. A lot of people wanted, right? Yeah.
they wanted the Roth, and the good news is the EQRP has Roth in it, so the Roth is not going away. You just have to maneuver. You have to switch gears. It's kind of like the tax code. The tax rates look like they're going to change, and it's going to be smarter for people to shift from passive entities to corporations. That looks like that's going to be a thing. So you just have to know the right information on and how to maneuver. Right now, this may not impact you at all if you just simply maneuver between an IRA and an EQRP. Then you're fine.
Please take us through your world. So I think I would like to give, next 15 minutes, why one should really do EQRP and how you got started and how a business owner, what I understand, right? Some kind of business they need to have to get into, working with your company. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. This was started because I was watching what was going on in the IRA and 401k space, where there was options. And for a long time, I had a self-directed IRA, and I saw the stuff that was out there, and I realized there was a problem. And one of the problems was UBID tax. One of the problems was you couldn't really take control of your assets. So if somebody wanted some real estate, they had to have some other party involved with a custodian. If they wanted gold, silver, crypto, any of these things, it was limited. And people really were stuck if they had businesses with employees, because all they had options for were 401ks with mutual funds. And so we built the EQRP years ago so that it was set up for a number of things that make it very unique. One, it can have up to 50 employees and everybody gets control. Everybody gets to control and be able to buy physical assets, real estate. They're not just stuck in stocks, bonds, mutual funds. They've got privacy and protection. Their ERISA protects the plan, and there's liability protections there that are not the same with IRAs or solo 401ks. Those are very limited based on the states. And so people, unfortunately, like in California, if you have $2 or $3 million in a retirement account, like an IRA or a solo 401k, and you get sued, you are screwed. And that's not the case with an EQRP. It's bulletproof. So I really just thought I got to do something that's better. It's not just the same thing. I think a lot of times people just say, well, what's the cheapest thing I can possibly find? And you don't want the cheapest thing, because you'll get taxed and killed if you ever get sued. So that's why this came into being.
Wow. Beau?
So just getting started for somebody who may be a W-2 employee, but also is a real estate investor, but only has traditional, wants to start. What are the kind of thresholds? Is it somewhere around $50,000 a year you can invest in your EQRP, depending on the.
Yes, you've got options with an EQRP. You can put up to $58,000 of your income into it, and until December 31st, you can put every dollar, pretty much like about 92% of the money you make into it, up to about $60,000. So after December 31st, the rules are changing, and this has to do with the mega backdoor Roth rule that's being blown apart, that's being shut down. And so some of these things are changing, but all this secondary income, all the self-employment income, side hustles, fees that you get, 1099 income, all that stuff could be included in contributions into an EQRP. So you could have a 401k at work, be a W-2, and have an EQRP. And so you have a lot of options. A lot of people don't realize they have options. So they say, well, I'm a W-2, or I'm a doctor, or whatever they're doing. And they can absolutely do more than they think, because that's what's available. It's unfortunate. There's a lot of marketing and Googling that confuses people.
Yeah, so true.
What's the kind of rule of thumb of, like, let's say I'm getting towards the end of the year, and I'm figuring I'm going to have a taxable event, and then I know I need to put loads of money into my retirement vehicle. What's like the, I know you're not an accountant, but what's good? It's not a dollar. Is it not a dollar for dollar, but it's
a dollar for dollar up to $19,500, and then after that, it's a percentage, unless you do the mega backdoor Roth, which you can do until December 31st for sure of this year. And in that case, it's dollar for dollar all the way up to $60,000. I mean, it's right under $60,000 after December 31st. And I'm assuming that they passed that piece. I don't know why anybody's going to protect that, except for a couple of people that are selling that as a strategy. So after January 1st, it's going to be, it's generally 20 to 25% of your income after the 20 grand that you put in as your elective deferral.
So essentially, if, let's just say my taxable event would have been, I would owe 20 grand, 19,900. Instead of paying the government, I could pay myself. Why wouldn't people do that? Why would you rather cut a check I just don't get it.
Well, they don't know.
You
I mean, Beau, people just don't know. And another great strategy. Anybody that has kids should be looking at paying their kids, because right now the tax brackets for individuals standard deduction is $12,400. People can pay their kids for legitimate work. That $12,400 is a deduction to the parent, and then the kid has active income that's taxed at zero, and that all can go into a Roth EQRP, and then you can invest it. So you literally get tax-free money that grows tax-free, that gets pulled out tax-free. Like, that's amazing.
This is amazing. I know. I mean, Damian, every time I spend time with you, I'm learning and I get so motivated. I don't know. We also changed our benefit plan and all. So what you're saying, as a business owner, I could put away $50-some thousand before December 31st, right, into the plan. And it's, again, if you want to, in simple terms, people who are watching us, how can they get in touch with you, first of all? And then also, how long does it take to get this whole process started, and ramifications and maybe cost involved, if you want to share anything like that?
Yeah, sure. Setting up plans generally takes a few days to get everything set up, and then all the bank accounts. So we set up all the bank accounts, the entities. There's multiple entities. If there are employees involved, it takes about 2 weeks typically, and then there's transfers around. The costs to set it up vary. There are some tax credits that are available. So if you have employees, it can actually be free, which is interesting, because the government is trying to get everybody involved, because for the most part, people get involved and invest in Wall Street. But it ranges from about $3,500 to $8,500. And that, again, depends on whether you have something more complex with a bunch of employees or by yourself. And then going forward, so people are really clear. It's always interesting to me. I always go back to the idea that you get what you pay for, and you can get free IRAs and free solo 401ks at Schwab or different places, and you're going to get what you pay for. It's like Facebook; it's free, and guess who's the product? You. Like, so, if you want to have the best teams, you have to make sure you're paying an appropriate amount for them, and that's really important to judge what you're going to do. Make sure you go find the best resources, best tools, best teams.
So essentially, if you have multiple entities, in theory, you could have multiple EQRP accounts and maximize each of those from a tax standpoint, or is there a limit?
It's called a controlled group, so you can only have a certain amount that you put in as an aggregate, as a total. So you could have 20 different companies, but all the companies, let's say you had employees in 20 different companies, you'd have to have matching plans. But there's not a way to have 20 different, like, you couldn't have 20 LLCs that you were just the owner of and then have 20 plans where you put 60,000 into each one of them. It's still an aggregate total 58,000 or 64.5 if you're over age 50.
Excellent.
And what about? Sorry, Vinney, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Beau. Yeah.
I was learning about this a while back. This guy Walter was talking about. He was calling them legacy IRAs, or like when you inherit the IRA. If I inherited an IRA prior to me being 59 and a half, can you use those for, like, I could start drawing on them now without any taxable, like, I'm just wondering for planning purposes, like eventually my parents or relatives would be passing away. If they set up one of these legacy or inherited, I'm 43, let's say, God forbid somebody died, but I inherited this, could I be using those funds today?
Yeah, absolutely. So everybody's going to die. So it's just one of those things. And it's important for us I did this with my dad many years ago. I hired him, and part of his income went into a retirement account. And then there was an inheritance that happened. It's a small number, but the point was that we did this as a family, as part of our legacy planning, and it went direct. So it generally doesn't go into an estate. It goes directly to the person. It used to be that you got to inherit something and then you can grow it and spend it the rest of your life. And if it was a Roth, then there was no taxes. Now they changed the rule a few years ago, so it's also called a stretch IRA. It's dead. You can only do it for 10 years now, meaning somebody inherits it, it's 10 years. If it's a Roth, as long as the Roth has been in existence for 5 years, then the person that inherits it gets to have something they can grow and spend for the next 10. So there's still some pretty cool planning that can be done. People get all upset that they can't do it for 50 more years, but it's still 10 years of tax-free. So, I mean, quit crying, right?
Yes. So true. What's the last thoughts, Damian, if you would get a lot of people watching us later on, how can you kind of give them motivation that they should really look into it? I mean, especially what's going on now in the walls, over there in Washington, D.C., this is of utmost importance, actually. Huh?
Yeah, I would say that anybody that has reached out, and I'll let you guys know how to get a copy of the book so you can learn more. When you're in our system and on our list, anything that changes, we're going to let you know about real time. So if it happens today, you're going to know tonight. And so you don't have to try to figure out what's happening. Like anything that's going to impact the retirement space, you'll know. We'll keep you up to date. And I think that that's the important thing, because headlines are hard and there's so much media and there's so much misinformation. Mm-hmm. So you can use this as whether you're a client or not, you'll end up being in the know, and you won't have to wonder what's actually happening. Excellent.
How can people reach you and your team of professionals?
Best way to reach out is to go to qrpbook.com and just get a copy of the book.
I think John's father, who has EQRP, asked, so any of my properties that I bought or invested in with my EQRP will not be affected by the new tax law. And from what I just gathered, that is correct. You're not going to be affected.
That's correct. Assuming that this passes, we're going to see a lot of layoffs. We're going to see some bankrupted IRA custodians that built their entire business up based on checkbook IRAs. And it's just, it's unfortunate that but this stuff happens. Rules change and things shift. So something to consider. EQRPs didn't get attacked. They're not going to get attacked. They're not going to go after the 401k industry and say you can no longer invest in real estate. That is not going to happen. It's too big of a deal. It's too much a part of the capital.
Yeah, it blows my mind like that people don't take the time to learn. Like we don't even have to do that much. We got guys like yourself that, hey, just download his ebook, read it a little bit, and instead of paying taxes, you could pay yourself potentially. It's just amazing that I guess that's why we're here doing these podcasts, so people learn and just explore what's out there for you, so you can have some retirement when you're ready to retire and not live, off Social Security.
It's a good plan, and it is available. But you have to do something. You have to take some action. So get a copy of the book. Just go to the company website and
please go to qrp.com. Right? Yeah,
it's actually EQRP.co. So it's an EQRP company. So EQRP.co, and
sure.
Get a copy of the book, and you'll get a report that sums up the book, because I know everybody's busy. So, so the next time you stop at a stoplight, you can read about half the book. It's the ebook, and then we'll send you a copy of the full book if you get insomnia and you want to read about the tax code.
What's your the martial art that you created? I'm curious because martial arts.
Yeah, it's called Yokido. It's a blend of yoga and Aikido and Reiki. So it's about conflict resolution and tension and going into relationship and then healing the conflict as you move through it. It's a way to live so that you're not only going and avoiding conflict or violence, but you're actually helping to create peace.
I like Aikido. I love those wrist locks. Yours is a gentle martial art, right?
So it's the most dangerous thing is lethal kindness. And that's what this ends up being, because the more connected you are in relationship, the more dangerous it can be, but the more powerful it is to connect. So it's that the wrist locks are fun and can be used. It's funny because if you look at somebody that's been studying, I've been studying for 20 plus years, and the longer you train, the more invisible things look, and it doesn't look dangerous until it's very dangerous.
Yeah, that's very cool. I love it. I used to train jiu-jitsu, and I love jiu-jitsu, and I haven't for years, but it's like I want to get back into it just because it's good. We work all day, and it's good to get out there. And
thank you so much, Damian, for taking the time, buddy. It's always a pleasure, and let's really get lots and lots of people out of shackles. Like you say, your goal is 1 million people, and you're on your way. And we really value your time. Thank you so much, and thank you, Beau. Anything last comments, bud?
No, just have a great weekend. It's another Friday. They seem to come before you know it every week. So new Friday. So a good week, and I'm excited. The weather's changing here in Las Vegas, and it's not 110 degrees anymore. So it's actually the weather's like perfect now. It starts cooling down. And it's the best time to be out in the desert.
So true. I know it's been getting kind of cooler now here in the Bay Area also. And thank you everybody for joining us today. I hope you got something out of it. Again, please join us next week, Friday at 9:30 Pacific. We come together, Vinney and Beau show, It's on real estate, commercial real estate, syndications, retirement plans we just talked about, of course, loans and all kind of great things. So we'll see you next week. Thank you so much. Thank you, Damian. Appreciate you, brother.
Thanks,
Take
guys.
care.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.